What's going on, everybody? You're listening to episode 7 of the Point NHL Recap Show. I'm Pascal Pryor. Once again, of course, always joined by Mark Howrlack. Mark, we got to start off, though. How's your week going, man?
Not too bad, buddy. Week's kind of flying by, to be quite honest with you. Can't believe it's already Wednesday. We had a pretty good game last night between both of our teams, though, eh? Calgary, Montreal. Honestly, for two teams that are like not looking like they're making the playoffs, like I thought it was a pretty solid game back and forth. Calgary got the edge on them, though, obviously. I don't know if you caught that game as well, but I mean, can't really like good hockey, man. It doesn't really matter who's playing, right? It's if you get a good game going, like you just get really into it. And we're just looking forward to watch some hockey. Obviously, we're going to talk about the Sweden trip coming up too for a couple teams, so that'll be interesting to see. But how about you, man? How's your week going?
It's going good. Same as you. It's flying by right now. It's crazy that it's already Wednesday. I got a little beer league action tonight, so that's always going to be fun. But yeah, unfortunately, I missed the game last night. I was at work. It was my sixth close in a row, so on a little grind there. But instead of watching the Flames Canadians game, I got to watch the AHL Battle of Alberta between the Calgary Wranglers and the Bakersfield Condors, and I got to watch Jack Campbell and watch how much of a joke that guy is. But we'll talk about him later on in the podcast when we're sort of covering up all the Oilers news, because there's some pretty big news there. Sort of end of last week. We'll start off the podcast though with Matt Petgrave. Have you seen everything that's happening over there in the UK right now with him?
So honestly, I don't really know too much about this, but I heard that he was like possibly being charged or for that whole incident with Adam Johnson of how he obviously like kicked him in the neck and Johnson lost his life, obviously. But like, so I think you know a little bit more about this than me. So like, how did this kind of go down? Like, was this something that like Johnson's family pursued? Was it like more of like locally looked into by the police and they decided to kind of like go forward with it? Like, kind of explain to everyone what happened if you do know.
So I'll start off with sort of what happened, because as you said, like people may not know at home. So on Tuesday, right now it's currently Wednesday when we're recording. So Tuesday he was arrested on the suspicion of manslaughter, and he was released Wednesday on bail without charge. So he hasn't been charged for anything as of yet. And then the other thing we got to keep in mind is this is over in the United Kingdom. So of course, like laws are different than here in Canada and the US. Like wherever you're listening from, laws are different. So in the United Kingdom, you can hold an individual for up to 24 hours without laying any charge. But depending on how serious of a crime it may be, you can hold them for up to 96 hours. But it looks like he was released on bail this morning. So, of course, he wasn't held for past 24 hours. And then the other important thing to sort of take away from that is that like he hasn't been charged of anything as of yet, right? He was sort of, I guess, just brought in. And then I also have a quote here from the detective chief that's sort of leading the investigation. And what he had to say was, "Our investigation launched immediately following this tragedy, and we have been carrying out extensive inquiries ever since to piece together the events which led to the loss of Adam in these unprecedented circumstances." And then the other thing I sort of was reading in this article was that in this case, police are potentially looking for involuntary manslaughter. So, like these are some pretty serious crimes that he could be charged for. But as of now, it doesn't look like there's like anything that he is being charged for yet. But of course, that could all change as this investigation goes on, because it doesn't look like this investigation is over, right? Like as of yet. I don't know if you sort of got all that, Mark, because that was, not gonna lie, a lot of information. And
No,
the
I
way
kind of
talk.
understand what's going on. I do understand what's going on, but like I don't know. It kind of just seems like they wanted to bring him in like for questioning and maybe get like a deeper understanding of probably what he was thinking in the situation and stuff like that and how it all played out. And it seemed like they probably just had no evidence to really like actually arrest him for the crime, right? So I mean, he's free now. I guess they're gonna look into it more, and something else could happen. I don't know. I don't really know how this goes forward. At the end of the day, the the thing that sucks the most is that Adam Johnson's gone, right? Like it's never going to change. Like for his family and stuff, his friends, like he's never going to come back, which sucks. I mean, if this guy did mean to do it, I hope that they do kind of like he faces the right punishment. I don't necessarily of just watching the video. I don't think he meant to do it, to be quite honest with you. But I guess we'll just kind of see how this goes and how it plays out.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head there. The biggest thing about this is just that loss of life with Adam Johnson, and it's just really shitty the circumstances right now and everything that's going on. And for like Matt Petgrave, like you got to think too how hard it may be on him, like with everything going on in the media right now.
Especially if he like actually like didn't like mean to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like in his mind, it was a freak accident. Like he killed someone and now he's like being like questioned for was it on purpose, essentially, right? And for further consequences. So I mean, it's a lot for him to go through too, right? Like he's just playing the sport he loves. It's not really easy for anyone in this situation, man.
Yeah, it's definitely a hard situation all around, and I do understand though why you do have this investigation because there was a loss of life,
You have
and
to do your due diligence.
yeah, you have to do your due diligence looking into it. I like honestly, I don't think charges will come out of this because like what happens on like it was on the ice in a game in a fast paced game, right? So like as you mentioned earlier, just having that evidence, I think it's going to be really hard to like get that evidence, whatever it is, to lay the charges and like go through this in the court of law, however it would work in the United Kingdom, right? But all around it doesn't look like this story's like ending anytime soon. And it looks like this investigation, there's gonna be more to come from it.
And like staying on this topic, but sort of just changing it a bit. Like I've kind of liked the NHL players at least making the attempt with these neck guards. You know what I mean? Some of them have done it in games. Some of them just practices. You know what I mean? It's a whole comfortability thing for them, right? But it's good to see that some guys are obviously noticing how serious this was and they're taking the initiative to at least try it out. Man, you didn't watch that Calgary game yesterday, but I don't. Did you see the Lindholm Gooley clip?
No, I missed it. Dude,
Dude, you have to watch it.
yeah.
So they got tangled up. Lindholm fell. His skate went flying backwards and he smacked Gooley right in the face. And it ended
Yeah,
up
like
hitting Gooley in the visor. It slightly cut him. I believe he was down for a second. He got up and went right to the dressing room. And I was like, okay, there's not like a lot of blood. You know, he's able to get up on his own power. Like, hopefully he's good. He ends up coming back a couple of minutes later. But man, if you get a chance, check out that clip. Happened so fast. Lindholm fell. His leg went flying in the air, just hit Gooley right in the face. Glad he's okay. But you know what I mean? Like, look how close that was. You know what I mean? Like, it could happen to anyone at any time. Like, it's scary.
and the other thing with that is these are professional athletes at the top of their game, right? So for minor hockey, like going to like a 13-year-old kid who's like going through puberty and your body's changing and like you don't have that control over your body. Like if you grow 5 inches over the span of a season, which like at that age some people do, like you don't have that control over your body on the ice as these NHL players do. So like I feel like it'd be more likely in minor hockey for like a freak accident like this to happen, just where you have like all these kids running around not really fully knowing how to control their bodies. And then as you mentioned, the NHL players wearing the neck guards. Yeah, I think it's great because the other thing with it is when you are a younger player, like these are the guys you look up to, right? Like I remember when I was younger, I'd tape my stick like Alexander Ovechkin, do like the mid the mid
Mid
to
to toe, kind
toe,
of.
yeah, mid to
Yeah.
toe tape job. And like it's all about when you're younger, it's all about like wanting to have the style like your players. Like Ovi used to have the yellow laces. Like I remember some of my teammates would have those yellow laces as well, right? So it's like if you're younger and you're seeing like and you don't want to wear a neck guard on the ice, but then you see all your favorite NHL players wearing a neck guard, it's gonna it's gonna make those younger players want to wear a neck guard and be more comfortable with that, which I think is another good thing about all these major hockey players starting to wear one now. So last week, Mark, of course, we did the way too early award predictions. I thought we should sort of stay on topic, but change it up a little bit this week. So we're gonna do our way too early NHL draft preview right now. I know you're probably absolutely stoked for this. You love the draft prospects and all the ratings. So I think the first guy we got to talk about is the Boston University boy, Macklin Celebrini. I have him right now as the top prospect in this draft. him and Cole Eiserman are really close. But what Macklin Celebrini is doing early on in this NCAA season is really well. So far, 9 games in, he has 8 goals, 10 assists for 18 points. It's 2 points per game. And then when you look at Adam Fantilli, what he did last year, right? First freshman to win the Hobey Baker Award since Jack Eichel. He was just below 2 points per game. And like Macklin Celebrini is sort of on that pace right now as a freshman. So what he's doing right now, like it's incredible to see. What do you make of him though? Do you have going number 1 as well, or are you more of a Cole Eiserman fan for this draft?
So I'm actually on board with you with Celebrini. I think this kid is really dynamic. He has a heck of a shot. I don't want to say for his age because it's just draft prospects are all the same age, but it's pretty crazy like what he's doing at school right now. Obviously, we saw Fantilli have a Hobey Baker worthy season last year, but this kid's kind of like, I don't want to say doing the same because he's not probably producing as much as Fantilli did, but like he's a heck of a player, man. Definitely one of the best players, if not the best player on Boston University already. And dude, the crazy thing about him is he's entering the league younger than even like Fantilli did when he entered the league. Like his birthday's not till July. So he could go to first overall like this next year as a 17-year-old, not even turning 18 until halfway through the summer. His stats are just incredible right now. Obviously he's played the U.S. National Development Program a little bit. He's played with the Chicago Steel as well. Sorry, that's Eiserman that's played with the U.S. National Development Program, actually. He played with the Steel last year. He was awesome too. I think he's a really highly ranked prospect. Honestly, if I'm San Jose, man, like I am looking for this guy so hard. Hopefully, I know Mike Grier doesn't want to lose, but they are hoping that they get the number 1 overall pick. Because maybe if they do think Eiserman's better, like at least they have the choice, you know what I mean, to take one of these two guys. What he's doing at school right now is incredible. 2 points a game. I don't really think that as of right now, I don't think there's a chance that Eiserman is better than him.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. The other thing though with Macklin Celebrini and also like talking about Adam Fantilli here that I'm finding interesting is we're seeing a lot of these guys now, these Canadian kids playing in the USHL and then moving on to the NCAA opposed to playing in the WHL, like QMJHL or OHL. And I think it's pretty fascinating to see because as of recently, it seemed like a lot more Canadian kids are sort of making this move that the Fantillis and the Celebrinis are doing where they don't go and play juniors in Canada. They go play in the US because both these guys played for Chicago Steel and then went on to the NCAA, right? And they're both going to be.
Well, should the Steel just have a heck of a program though, right? Like they've produced so many NHLers like over the years. It is crazy though, especially like if it's an American, it's more like understandable. But
yeah,
with these Canadians, you're right because at least like myself, like growing up, I don't know about you, it was always like, well, if you can make the NHL faster, if you think you're almost NHL ready, like by the time you're 20, it's like you should go to the CHL. You're playing more games to get ready, like the NHL season. You're playing 64 games in the CHL or at least in the OHL? You know what I mean? You playing that amount of games gets you more ready for when you get pro. And then in college, it's like you have extra time to develop before you can go to pro hockey. And it's crazy now that these kids where they could probably be, well, they could be in like either the OHL or the WHL this year, probably absolutely lighting it up, get drafted, go to the NHL next year. But I think that college and university hockey's gotten so much better over the last couple of years that it's almost like a better path for them just to play like 1 to 2 years in the NCAA and then make your way to the NHL. Because look how many guys, man, have came out recently from NCAA, been instantly NHL ready, and it's not even like they're just like an NHL player, like they're a good NHL player, like right off the bat.
Yeah, it's definitely a high number. And like even like for the Canadian kids, like another guy, Cale Makar, right? That he didn't play in the US for juniors, but he still didn't play major junior in Canada. He played in the AJHL. Exactly. He was drafted from the AJHL, actually.
Yeah, obviously, like Cale Makar is a guy that's done that in another position, like goaltending wise. Devon Levi, a couple years ago, he was playing in the CCHL, decided not to go to the Q or the O or wherever he would have went. Goes to Northeastern. He's in the NHL in a couple years. So, I mean, it's getting more popular, right? University hockey, college hockey's a lot better than it was a couple years ago. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple more Canadians take that route.
Yeah, I think we for sure will going forward see more Canadians to take this route. The next guy though on our list for the draft, we already mentioned him earlier. It's Cole Eiserman. He's with the U.S. National Development Program right now. He's committed to Boston University to play with Macklin Celebrini next year, which is actually really interesting because these two guys were like best buddies growing up. They both played at Shattuck St. Mary's before they went on to juniors in the National Development Program. But like it is really close this year, to be honest. I really do like Cole Eiserman. I think he has such an elite shot right now. With the U.S. national team so far this year, like he's putting up some numbers, man. In 16 games, he has 21 goals, 9 assists, and 30 points. He's projected for 101 points through 55 games with 83 goals, dude. That's insane.
It's actually, did you see that he played against Celebrini? Because you know how the national development team is in, like, they technically play in the USHL and then they play against college teams. Dude, they beat, to be fair, they didn't have like Lane Hudson, their starting goalie, and a couple other guys, but the development team beat Boston University 8-1, and Eiserman had a hat trick. Like, he's pretty much ready for university college hockey as well. And the question is, too, man, like, say Celebrini goes 1. I'm really curious to see if he does what Power did and he goes back to school for at least another year and maybe even signs at the end of the season. Dude, because he'll be going to school with Eiserman.
Especially if it's San Jose, because if it's San Jose that gets that first overall pick and you are taking Macklin Celebrini, like if you're San Jose, it's not going to do Celebrini any good coming into that organization playing with nobody.
It's crazy, though, that you'd send him back to college when he's putting up 2 points a game.
Yeah. But if that's what's better for his development, that's what's better for your franchise. Because like San Jose is going to need a couple years here with high picks, right? Like that might be the best move.
It's going to take a while.
The other thing was we're talking about Celebrini going back there too. Like depending on who drafts Eiserman, like you might want him up in the NHL next year because he is NHL ready. Like
I just want to clarify to people too, like he is no relation to Steve Eiserman. It's spelt differently as well. It starts with an E, but it sounds the exact same. So no relation to Steve Eiserman at all, people.
But yeah, no, I really like this guy, man. I think whatever team drafts him is going to get absolute stud. His biggest comparison so far as a young player has been Austin Matthews, just with the way this guy scores goals and he plays he plays center and left wing, I guess.
Yeah.
Like he probably
it's a pretty good comparison, to be quite honest. I don't see him obviously having the same ceiling as him, but their playing styles are quite similar. Who do you got at number 3?
Number 3, I have this Ivan Demidov kid. I actually think I pronounced it right. If you guys listened last week, I think I fucked up on 10 out of 10 of the Russian names.
You did say that right.
Let's go. I mean, it is an easy one. I have him at 3. I think he could fall a little bit here just because he's been injured, right? Like he's going to be out until the new year due to injuries. And then also he is a Russian player as well, playing in the KHL. So with everything that happened with Michkov last year, and like it looked like some of these Russian players that are in their draft year, like at the beginning of the season, a lot of these KHL teams, like it didn't seem like they were playing them and stuff. So who knows, like if he'll
but that's Ska, dude. Like that's the Ska team. Like like Michkov goes over on loan to Sochi and he's a point per game player and like he would be leading the whole SKA team in like points per game, man. Like it's like, okay, yeah, I like Demidov. So just talking about, I actually don't have Demidov at 3 personally, but like talking about Demidov, dude, kid is really highly skilled. Like he has some comparisons to Michkov. I don't think he has as high of a ceiling as Michkov. The difference with him is he could actually come over to the NHL a year before Michkov. He's only signed with SKA till he would have to go back for one more year after this year, and then he could come over. So, I mean, if you think you really like him, it's like he's just not going to come over right away the first year, but he could the second year. So it's like, I don't even know if he'd make the team anyway the first year. So I don't really think that's going to like make his stock go down. Possibly maybe the injury now and the fact, yeah, there's still people skeptical of drafting like these Russian guys 100%. Really good player, to be honest with you. I have him in the top 5. I just don't have him 3. Number 3, this is a really D-heavy draft, and I have the first D going off the board. Artyom Levshinov. I don't know if you've ever heard of this guy. He goes to Michigan State. He played in Green Bay last year in the USHL. As a right-handed shooting defenseman, this guy's 6'2", 198 pounds. He had 13 goals in 62 games in the USHL last year. Right now in Michigan State, he has 4 goals and 8 assists for 12 points in 12 games. He's a really solid two-way defenseman as well. Big guy, can lay the body, and he's showing a lot of offensive upside. I'd say probably the next D off the board, like my honorable mention, would be Sam Dickinson in London.
Yeah, he's looking.
And this is a
good.
really D-heavy draft too, like I said. I think this kid may be a little bit better than Dickinson, at least right now, though. He's got the size. He's right-handed as well. I think teams are going to be really interested in him, and I have him going at number 3, at least right now.
Are there any other like notable players you want to mention? Sort of like guys anywhere?
There's 100% a lot of good players in this draft. Like, I don't know if you know Berkeley Catton. He plays on Spokane in the WHL. He played in the under-18s for Canada in this past summer. He was awesome for them. Zane Perrick, he plays in Saginaw in the OHL. He had like almost 25 goals last year as a defenseman. In the year before his draft year, he's an awesome player as well. I don't know how high he's going to go. We have a couple guys' brothers that could potentially be drafted. David Juracek's brother, Adam Juracek in Czechia, he's looking really good. Lane Hutson's brother, Cole Hudson, he plays in the National Development Program. He's looking pretty good as well. There's a bunch of good players in this draft. I don't think that this draft is as deep as 2023, but I'd still consider this a really good draft. And I think there's a lot of players like to keep your eye on, especially early. And there's going to be a lot of D-go in the first round, I think.
Yeah, the D for me is like
a lot of D.
Where this draft
is why
really
I was kind of sketchy of Montreal picking Reinbacher at 5. I don't have a problem with him. It's more that there was like so much forward talent available, and I know how heavy this draft is.
I think the thing that Montreal did though was like you're getting that right shot defenseman, which like.
And I guess even if you get another guy, there's no problem with having too much D, right? Like you could just trade a guy eventually.
If you could have Lane Hudson and this Reinbacher kid as your 1-2,
dude. But even like look at Gooley, like, dude.
Yeah,
like Gooley is like legit. Like I think he might be a top pairing defenseman in the future.
And you have Xhekaj. Dude, honestly, I love Xhekaj as well. I think Xhekaj.
I don't think he's ever going to be more than like a bottom pairing guy, though.
I don't know, like maybe not, but he's gonna be one of those like really good bottom pairing guys. Like
like he's gonna be in the league for a while, but I don't see him like I can't see him ever like producing enough offense to be like a top 4 guy.
For me, his comparison is Nikita Zadorov, just this big guy who like if you have him as your like 4th defenseman, you don't really love it, but if you have him as like that 5th guy, dude, like you love him there.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I think he's definitely, if he keeps this up, he's gonna be in the league for quite some time.
I think we should move on to the NHL and their global series that they're starting up. It actually starts up tomorrow, so by the time this gets released, the first game and probably the second game on the Friday will have already been played. But so basically, they're playing over in Sweden. There's 4 games. There's one on Thursday the 16th between the Detroit Red Wings and the Ottawa Senators. Then on Friday the 17th, the Toronto Maple Leafs play the Detroit Red Wings. On Saturday, the 18th, Minnesota Wild against the Ottawa Senators. And then to wrap it up, Sunday, the 19th, you have Toronto Maple Leafs versus the Minnesota Wild. Is this good for the NHL, or do you think like it's time to sort of move on from these mid-season games abroad?
Okay, first of all, I really like it, to be honest. Like, I think it's like, it doesn't really make a difference for us over here. Like, it's just more of like a game on it, like an odd time, but I don't know. I feel like if you want to like continue to grow the game, like you've got to like get hockey like elsewhere besides in like this continent. You know what I mean? Like all these guys are like a lot. How much of the NHL is from Europe now, right? Like there's so many guys now that are not just like Canadian players in the league. You know what I mean? So I think it's special to like some of the players. Like it's special for guys that love the NHL and never get the opportunity to see games. They're going to have to spend thousands of dollars just to come over to North America just to go see a game, if not. My one criticism of it is I don't understand why there's 4 teams going over. Every team's playing 2 games. Why isn't Toronto playing Ottawa at all? Why aren't they staying an extra day or 2 to play? Like, It makes no sense, dude. They're going all this way. Like, why don't they just play 3 games there? Like, it makes zero sense to me, dude.
I think
Like, no, okay, maybe Toronto and Ottawa, it's like they're so close in that, like, you want like the fans in North America, but like if it's, I don't know. I still don't really get it. Like, then you got Toronto and Detroit there, dude. Like, it's the same thing.
I don't know, man. See,
like distance wise, though.
Okay, yeah, distance wise, I see there the distance wise thing, but the NHL this season with Ottawa sort of starting to become a better team and a playoff hopeful team is like the NHL this year has been trying to bring back that Battle of Ontario that has been dead for the past 20 years, right?
But at the same time, they could just add an extra game between them during the regular season. We're always talking about the schedule being changed, and I don't like how they just play each other once in each conference. That's a total different conversation. But I just think realistically, they could just add another game between them during the season. They used to play each other like 8 times. Like,
see, the way it works now though is like I think every year you play your interdivision. There's like an interdivision team that you play like one time less than everybody else. It's something weird like that because last year,
just how the math works. Yeah,
last year how the math worked for the Battle of Alberta, there was one less Battle of Alberta last year than there like normally is, just because of it was like that season where you play the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah, now that there's more teams in the league,
Flames,
it's different. Yeah.
So I think like for the NHL, like just like with the way the scheduling works, like they just want to have those games over here because those are going to be the moneymaker games, right? For like the Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs, where you're having that Battle of Ontario. It's 2 good teams now where it's sort of been like shit for the past 20 years. The thing
sorry to interrupt, but like, why doesn't Minnesota and Detroit play there then, though?
Yeah, that is the one thing that I find weird is like, so like, there's 4
games. I get your mentality for sure.
There's 4 games there. Like, why does Detroit play back to back? Like, why don't they play Thursday and Saturday or like Thursday and Sunday? Like, why are they playing Thursday, Friday on a back to back? When it looks like
I don't really have a good answer for you.
Same with Minnesota. Like Minnesota plays a back to back on Saturday and Sunday, right? Like why do they have it where like it's already rough enough going to the other side of the world to mid-season, like to play these games? Like why are you throwing back to backs in there? Are you like
but and that's more my thing. That's more my thing about playing another game too. It's just like you're already there. Like you may as well just play another game. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
honestly, for me, I think these mid-season global series, whatever they're doing here, I think they gotta stop it, man.
Would you feel better if it was like to start the season?
Even to start the season, it's weird because like last year they did that with Nashville, and I forget who the other team.
I think it was San Jose, wasn't it?
But it was like so like they play, so the regular season's technically kicked off. But then there was like a 4-day break or something until like the rest of the NHL started playing. So it was like,
yeah, that didn't really make sense. But like, what if they didn't do that though? Game. What if they didn't do that though? What if they just did like, okay, there's 4 teams there, like couple games to start it, like then you get a couple games going here too, right? So,
see, I still think though it's gonna like for the players you're gonna have a slower start to the season because
it is hard on the players. That's the thing. That's the problem.
Like. I understand, like, I do understand that they're trying to grow the game globally, and that's why they're doing this. But the first thing, my problem there is if you are trying to grow the game globally, like, outside of North America, Sweden probably has the biggest NHL fans.
Yeah, so probably Sweden than Finland.
Go somewhere that's not sweet. Like, go to Australia like they did earlier this year. Go to the United Kingdom. Like, I don't know.
Go UK would be a shorter trip too.
Dude, go to Japan or something. Like, if you're gonna do this where it is mid-season, go to destinations where hockey already isn't like growing massively there. And then the other thing I think is instead of doing this, just have a best on best international fucking tournament because that is what is going to grow the game the most. What's going to grow the NHL the most is having your best players representing their countries playing against the other best players representing their countries. Like it's not that fucking hard, man. It's
No, I know
not that
100%,
hard.
but
Just
it seems like it's going to happen though. They were talking about like the World Cup a couple weeks ago.
the way the World Cup right now for me is the same as GTA 6. Every once in a while you're teased with a little bit of it's gonna happen, and then you're like, holy fuck, it's gonna happen when I'm 40. It's like dude, just
No,
make it happen.
I know, no, I get what you mean, but it seemed like the last update about it was more like legit. Like they had a time
Yeah.
frame it's going to happen and stuff too, right?
Still though,
I
man.
mean, the
It's
Olympics
been
will be
10 years
better.
almost.
Like there's probably going to be a team Europe again, right? So I think there's definitely going to be something along those lines because man, this Russia's probably not participating. Do you think?
Dude, no
Like
shot.
right, like
No
next
shot.
year, like no chance, like or 2 years from now, like
Team Russia wins, you have Ovi drinking out of like their like cup or whatever it is with Putin, just blowing up on social media. I don't think the NHL, if the NHL is paying for it too, which they are going to be paying for the World Cup, like there's no shot in hell that Russia's going to be involved, right? Like
no,
it,
and that sucks for like the
it's not going
Russian
to happen.
players who didn't do anything wrong, but like it just can't happen, right? Like there's no way around it. Like they can't do it with those guys in there for sure. But I think yeah, they definitely need some sort of tournament. It's been way too long. Like McDavid's been in the league how long? This guy played on Team North America, right? So
Well, the last one was 2015, right? So it's
I think it was 2016. I went to I went
okay.
to a game of North America versus um was it Sweden? No, because I wasn't there for that whole McKinnon thing. Russia, I think. I think it was North America versus Russia. I was at that game. That was pretty cool. It was in it was at Scotiabank. So you want to
So
move on now and talk about like you what
yeah,
everything else to say about that, or you want to talk about the manager meetings a little bit?
no, I think we should move on from this because honestly, if I talk about this anymore, I might have a heart attack. How much I'm hating the NHL for not putting this on.
We just
Yeah,
need a solidified schedule.
I think we should get moving on. So of course the manager meetings happen like a couple times every year. With the Hall of Fame inductions going on this week in Toronto and everything, managers were meeting there. The biggest topic though, it seemed like was just overtime and has it sort of like become stale and are there any changes needed? For you, Mark, has the overtime become stale? Like, do you think something needs to be done here to sort of spice it up a little bit?
No, I don't really think it's like become stale. I think it could use a little bit of a tweak personally, but like I don't know, like every time Montreal's in OT, like I'm just like so into it, right? Because it's like you played this whole game 5-on-5, like it's been basically a tight game, you know what I mean? Like so it's kind of interesting just to see when you're down to 3-on-3, like what's gonna happen. I do kind of understand though the kind of bringing the puck out of the zone like on purpose when you have control just to like either make a change or like kind of get going on the fly. You know what I mean? There's obviously no rule against it, but I do understand why they'd want to change that. So obviously they were talking about what an over and back rule,
Yeah,
and
like
then
a
a
half
shot
forward over and
clock,
back. Yeah.
right? And a shot clock as well. So did they say anything? Was there specifics about it? Like, did they say whether it's going to be like center ice or like 30-second shot clock here? Or like, do you know anything more?
I didn't see any specifics on that or anything. Personally, for the shot clock, I don't like that as much because, like, first of all, what qualifies for a shot, right? Like, if Austin Matthews takes a one timer and he misses 5 feet wide, like, does that count as a shot, or does it actually have to be like a shot on goal, right?
Probably. I think they'll probably end up counting as a shot.
See, I don't like that. And then like when you think about that too, how fast the game is, like, and how like offsides the way it is right now with the reviews and stuff, and how we're all sort of starting to hate that. I could see that shot clock thing being like, oh well, like that looked like a shot. You know what I mean? Like if a player passes it and he's trying to go across the crease, but the goalie like gets his stick on it or something, like you're gonna have coaches or whatever like arguing like, oh no, like that was a shot.
Or
Like
like
why did I?
even what about like a block shot, dude, too?
Yeah, like I think there's too much like
So I don't
circumstances around
disagree with
there.
you on this at all. Like I don't think the shot clock will really work. I'm kind
Like
of curious about the over and back rule though. Like I think it
so
would depend.
No, I love the over and back rule because the over and back rule, they have it in NBA and it's like it's so straightforward. It's if you cross if you so like if you cross the center line in basketball and you bring the ball back, it's an over and back, right? Like it's an over and back. We're like so in the NHL, like if you bring it over in overtime, if you bring it past the red line and then you have possession of the ball and or have possession of the puck, wrong sport now, and you bring it back over the red line, it's an over and back. The other team gets the puck, right? Like
Okay, so
that one, there's
here's
not as much circumstances surrounding it, right?
it makes sense. So you would say do center.
Yeah, I do center because if you do the blue line, like you
Yeah,
already
that
have
the
the
blue
whole
line doesn't really
offsides.
make much sense.
You already have all the offside stuff. Like
What if you're pressured at the line, like legitimately pressured at the line, and you like just stick handle back over the line? Like, what's you
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, okay, so but I totally get that, but what would your solution be? So then what happens? So the guy goes over and back, then what happens? Is it a face off? Do you just throw the puck in the zone and give the other team possession? Like, what do you do?
I do what you do for the beginning of a power play, face off in the other team's end, and they get to choose where it is
Okay, that's
because
interesting.
for me the biggest thing about the overtime right now is that it's become so much puck possession. Like you do have these teams going all like they almost play back to their goalie sometimes,
Dude, the
man.
opening
Like,
face off is so critical. Like teams like are
yeah.
putting like fourth liners on the ice to take the face off who are good on draws, and then they immediately get off.
Well, like in team right now, teams are they're so scared of losing the puck and giving up one of those like 3-on-1s or 2-on-1s. Like you do have it where they're always coming out of the zone, going back in, coming out, going back in. So it's like if you do go back out, bam, face off in your own end. The other team is to choose where that face off is. Like, you know how many goals that would potentially lead to an overtime and make it so much more thrilling where it's like, oh, like you gotta win this face off. Like could be the most important part of the game,
Buddy,
right?
you should have been running these meetings like that. Those
I
are
know,
great. I
man.
didn't even think of this. Like, I don't. Those are great suggestions.
I can't speak English, but like when it comes to sports shit, it just starts fucking the
It
brain
just
starts
comes out, man.
flowing, man. But then the other thing too for the overtimes that I'd change if I was the NHL is make it 10 minutes or make it 2 5-minute periods because dude, shootouts are miserable, man.
Okay, I hate that a shootout can decide a game. ECHL to 7 minutes. I mean, like,
ECHL does 7 minutes, and then another thing I've noticed is at work this season, I forget what league it is because I always mix them up. It's either the OJHL or the GOJHL, which is a junior A in Ontario.
yeah, junior A and
They
junior B, those two leagues.
I think they either do 2 5-minute overtime periods or they do like 1 10-minute one. And then if it's not decided, then they go to a shootout. Like I do 10 minutes of overtime, man. Like
You'd
it's
have a
not gonna
lot
hurt the
more games
game.
ending in overtime for sure.
I think if you do that and you add the half court or the red line rule as we'd call it in the NHL,
Yeah,
like
over and back. Yeah.
I think it would cut the amount of games that go into shootouts honestly down by 50%.
That's something that I really like to see. I don't really like either winning or losing in a shootout. It honestly, like, just losing in one makes you like more mad because it's like you could have had a second point and you lost in a shootout. And even winning it, it's like, okay, you got the extra point, but like doesn't really prove who the better team was, like, whatsoever, really.
Dude, it's
Or like,
just
you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, okay. The
man, like
worst is like watching the World Juniors and when they used to do that. Like, that was nuts when USA beat Canada in the gold medal game in a shootout. I was like, what is happening? We're in a shootout.
dude, when you get a shootout, man, it's like when you're watching like the greatest movie ever, and then it just like ends. It just
Yeah.
ends. It's like, oh, like
Like,
okay,
shootouts are
what's that?
entertaining, don't get me wrong. Like, when you see
No,
like
I
a
hate them.
penalty shot, you
A
really?
penalty shot, a penalty shot's different. A penalty shot I like because it's mid game, but when it's a shootout to decide a game and it's just shot after shot after shot, it's like dude, you just want like games that usually go into overtime and shootouts are like really good games. They're really entertaining. So you just watch the best like 60 minutes of hockey that you've seen in person at it like at an NHL game, and then you go to a shootout and you like the game's decided by like nothing
I guess
essentially.
I'm more just interested in like them just going on breakaways and like these skilled guys making moves and stuff more than the game ending that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I I see what you mean there. I think we should move on to sort of the Calgary Flames, what's going on with their UFAs, because this was a pretty big discussion for us last week, and it's sort of evolved a bit from then. Right now, it looks like the Leafs, Devils, and the Canucks, they're all interested in some of these UFAs from the Calgary Flames. When I'm talking about the UFAs, I'm really talking about their defensemen because I don't think any of these teams are going out and picking up Elias Lindholm right now. Um, so out of the three defensemen in Calgary, being Chris Tanev, Nikita Zadorov, and Noah Hanifin, who do you think sort of fits where, and like, are there maybe other teams that you think these players would fit well on?
First off, like it makes a lot of sense that these three teams to me are in the market for these three defensemen, or like if any specific ones, you know what I mean? Maybe just like the Leafs are interested specifically in Zadorov. I guess it seems like just it's kind of blowing up on the media. It seems like he's interested in going there. The Leafs definitely need to make a change back there, I think. Even like bringing in a guy like Tanev makes a lot of sense. Like, dude, like even Hanifin, it's like, it's hard for me to say like a specific guy for any of these teams. I think they would all help in like kind of different ways. You know what I mean? They
Yeah,
have like different styles of play. I don't know, Tanev and Zadorov. I guess it's like they're a lot more similar than Hanifin, right? But
but
like Tanev's a lot
Zadorov,
smaller than Zadorov is.
yeah, with Zadorov, there's a lot more of that physical presence compared to Tanev. Like that's a big, like they're both sort of shut down guys, but I think Chris Tanev probably moves the puck out of his own end a bit better, whereas Zadorov really is like a sort of off the glass and out type of guy, and then Zadorov just like has that physical presence. Like that guy's massive, right?
Yeah, and like he's a big like dude, and like he's got a little bit of offensive like upside to his game too. Like he put up 14 goals last year. Like all these guys would fit on any of these three teams is basically what I'm trying to say. Um, man, I think it'd be so like interesting though, like if he went like Zadorov went to the Devils, like they've lost like a couple D-man, right? Like in the offseason, but then you got like Luke Hughes coming up. Like imagine him on like the third pairing, like with like Kevin Ball in New Jersey,
Yeah,
dude. Like
the
or even
Twin
playing with
Towers
like
back
Luke
there.
Hughes or something. Like, dude, like you know what I mean? Like imagine him with Luke Hughes and like just letting Luke Hughes go free on forward, and this
Yeah,
guy's like there to like back him up. Like, but even the Canucks, man, like look how good they're looking. For years, what's their problem been? Defense. Well, they brought in a couple guys in the offseason, Ian Cole, Carson Soucy. Like they're helping them out a lot. But imagine bringing in another guy, you can kind of get Tyler Myers like potentially even out of the lineup. Like, and for the Leafs, it's like, man, they're having trouble like with letting in goals right now. Like any of these guys can help. Tanev's obviously the different guy here because he's right-handed. You could always use a right-handed shooting defenseman. I think all three of these teams can use a right-handed guy. So I think it's just going to depend on like the asking price for sure for these guys. Another team I could see in this, to be honest with you, is Dallas.
yeah, they
I
need they
think
need
they
some
could use like
defensemen.
another like top four defenseman, and I think they're like set. Obviously, they're looking really good right now. But like honestly, I've always just thought even the offseason, I kind of thought that Chris Tanev's going to end up in Dallas.
See, I think like, more Noah Hanifin would in Dallas because
See, to me is I think I don't know. They might need another right-handed guy though.
yeah,
But like all these teams could use a right-handed guy, basically, right? Like, but yeah, I
just
guess Hannafin could go to Dallas. He was rumored to go. Apparently, the Coyotes were asking about him, dude.
well for Noah Hanifin, like he wants to play an American market. So I don't like if you're the Flames, why would you trade him to a Canadian team where like if you do trade him to a Canadian team, you're not going to get that same return as if you trade him to an American team. Because if you trade him to an American team, they know that like okay, we're gonna have a good chance here of re-signing him. Where if you trade Noah Hanifin to the Leafs, like he's essentially gonna be a rental. Like he is an RFA at the end of the year, but
Isn't he a UFA? I think he's
yeah,
unrestricted.
I think he actually might be a UFA. But like if you give him to Toronto though, like like as the Leafs, you have no shot of re-signing this guy, right? Where if you send him to the Devils or Dallas, like you have a way better shot of re-signing him just based off the fact that like he doesn't want to play in Canada, right? And then the other thing I think we should talk about with the Leafs and them like sort of looking at some of these Flames players for a defensive like a coming in is, so Brad Treliving is the GM of Toronto right now, which, like, honestly, I haven't heard much of this. He's the GM of Toronto. He left the Calgary Flames organization. The Calgary Flames owners were so petty, basically, that he was leaving, that they didn't let the guy sit at the Toronto Maple Leafs draft table for their first round pick, right? Like, that's how petty the Flames ownership was when he left. I don't know how much the Flames ownership wants Craig Conroy dealing with Brad Treliving right now. So if the
That's
Leafs,
something that I've honestly wondered about too. Like, it just seems weird to like trade a very like
like,
a good player to them, like almost right away.
yeah, well, and like if you are the Leafs and you are going out and getting Tanev or Zadorev or like whoever it is, maybe from the Flames, like, are they going to have to pay more because of the history with these two GMs? Like, that could be something that would be an actual thing, right? Where it's like ownership is forcing Craig Conroy not to take a deal or to ask for more just because of the fact that these two guys worked together essentially for like 9 years or something like that, right? So I think that's another thing to keep an eye on, because right now, for the Leafs, like, it looks like the only team really willing to give up defensemen that are actually defensemen that are going to make a difference on the Leafs, it's the Calgary Flames. Like, I don't know what other defenseman right now you can go out and get if you're the Leafs. Like it, like
It's a very interesting point, like with the whole situation with that. Honestly, man, kind of like a weird move though by the Calgary owner. Like, considering Tree Living was there for so long, like I don't know, he seemed like he's as much as Tree Living probably made some questionable moves. Like he was like seemed like a very good upfront guy. You know what I mean? He's
it
kind of
was
always been like that.
it was more the fact that he left on his own terms and they didn't get a chance to go out and fire him. Because, like, I do believe that ownership wanted Treliving to come back, and Treliving was like, "No, I'm done. I'm done here."
Okay, that's
I
interesting. Yeah,
um
but
I think
yeah,
we
like
should,
I don't know. One thing I wanted to go back to. So like we're
yeah.
talking about these three guys, dude. So like the whole thing with Hannifin's really interesting. Like a month ago, it like kind of looked like he was gonna re-sign. Well, with the talking with his GM saying that they're like not necessarily getting close, but they were talking. So Pierre LeBrun said yesterday, I don't know if you heard this, that like Hannafin had an offer on the table close to $60 million. So like doing the math, $60 million would be him getting like 7.5 million for 8 years.
That's a decent bit, not gonna lie.
Like to me, does that not seem kind of like I think he's a very good defenseman, and I actually don't think he's like appreciated enough, but that seems kind of high to me. Don't you? Like even if that number is like he said close to 60, right? So even if he's making 56, like that's still like 7 million for 8 years.
That is high. He's making five right now, so like it is a $2.5 million increase. I think the thing with that though is the term is that since you're getting him on 8 years, like towards the end of the contract, with the way everybody thinks the salary cap is going to go up, right? Like that 7.5 by year 6 would be like him making five right now, right? Like I think so. I think that's the thing we're going to start seeing with all these next contracts, where like you're getting all that term, is that now that we do know the cap is going to go up, you're gonna see players probably going for that term to
It
get
does
that
make
extra
sense.
money.
It's just like it's just questionable, I guess, for me for a guy who's like not really producing a lot offensively either.
Yeah,
Like you can be great defensively, but like I feel like as a defenseman to be considered in that higher echelon category, like you got to produce offensively though, right? Like so I don't know. I was just curious of what your thoughts were. Like if he ended up signing that, like would you have been like kind of like would you be okay with that? Like if he ended up signing like an 8-year deal at like just over $7 million, like or would you think it's a mistake for the Flames considering like they're not even really looking like they're making the playoffs? Like selling seems like the best option at this point.
yeah. Beginning of the season, if you signed that, I would have thought it was a bit high to start off, but then like as the years went on, I probably would have liked that contract a bit more. But yeah, looking at it, like we're sellers now. no disrespect to Montreal, but like last night, the game between Montreal, like that's a team that like we're sort of in that same bubble with, like where it's like going into the season, I personally thought this was a playoff team. Where now, like dude, like we could like they could literally be picking top 5 at the end of the year, and I wouldn't be surprised at this point. Like they haven't looked good, man.
They haven't at all. And like, isn't Mangiapane like their highest scorer, and he's gonna have like 10 points or something?
Yeah, it's something ridiculous like that. Like this, they got to go through a reshuffle here, which I think they are, and it looks like
The
they're
thing is,
doing
people
good.
are saying Kadri and Huberdeau aren't going to be happy about it, and it's like, well, bro, like, I'm sorry, but you've kind of contributed to the reason why it's happening. Like, you know what I mean?
Dude, I said it last week. If those two guys are pissed off about it, what have you done in your year? Like they've been with the Flames now for about a year and a quarter, let's say. What have you done in that time to show the Calgary Flames that you guys are going to be leading this team to a Stanley Cup or leading them to like Western Conference Finals? You haven't done anything to prove that. So what do you like? You have no say in it. You have no. I don't get what they're talking about, man. It drives me insane. Like we're going into a rebuild. Oh, I'm upset. Okay, play better. Play better so we don't have to go through a rebuild. It's as simple as that, man. Like,
Dude, I can't figure out what's wrong with Huberdeau.
he wants to be in Florida. He wants to get out of here quick.
His foot speed is just
Yeah. I think we should move on though to our guest celebrity this episode. He's coming on to talk about his New York Rangers. Let's bring on Garett Parsons, or as I like to call him, Garett Schilling. I don't know the difference. So let's bring in G now. Yeah, Mark.
yeah, sounds good.
Okay, G, let's start off, buddy. How you doing right now?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing good. You know, just
good, G.
just grinding the recording right now. So your Rangers, they're looking really good to start the season. They're first in the Metro with an 11-2-1 record, tied for third in the league with the Dallas Stars. Just to start off here though, what's been the biggest factor to the start of the season so far?
I mean, it probably Panarin being like second in the league in points, and also, honestly, I think the biggest factor has probably just been Laviolette actually having a system and not just telling everyone to run around and every single game new lines. And I think there's like actually a system that they're playing under, so they know it works and it's actually working. And also Lafreniere having 7 points or 7 goals and 4 assists doesn't hurt either.
So yeah, I wanted to talk about the kids. You mentioned Lafreniere there. What's the biggest thing you're sort of seeing with him and Capo Caco that's sort of like leading to their development this year and their success?
I actually think Lafreniere for sure is just that he's actually getting an opportunity. Like the last 3 years, his entire entry level contract, there was a couple games, but 99% of the time in his first 3 years, he was playing third line minutes, no power play time. He was also playing behind Kreider and Panarin on the left wing. But then this year, Laviolette immediately in training camp, Lafreniere moves to the right wing. He's now playing with Panarin and Trocheck, and he's getting power play time consistently. He's not just sitting behind Panarin or Kreider and Panarin waiting for minutes. He's like actually getting an opportunity. Like I don't think you put it's. I think he was the perfect storm of the COVID year, so he didn't get all the time to play. He was drafted after Matthews and McDavid, so everybody's had these huge expectations. He was also like the first overall pick that came into a system that had its core. Like he came into Panarin, Kreider's advantage ad. He came into like an actual group of guys and didn't get just thrown into the top line and had to figure it out right away. He wasn't given any minutes, so he had nothing to work with.
Yeah,
So
no, I completely agree with you there on that. Like I was talking with somebody else at work earlier this week about Lafreniere, and they were calling him a bust, and I was saying I don't think he is. I think it's just the fact that he hadn't gotten that shot to like produce. Like when you look at all these other young picks as you mentioned, like they all go to their teams and they're leading their team. Like they're the main guy on their team. Where with Lafreniere, like he was playing third line minutes for his first 3 years in the league, which like as a first overall pick. They shouldn't have had that happening, but it's good to see that he's sort of breaking out this year.
What's up with
Um,
Kako though, dude? Like he's not really producing much. Like
Yeah.
got some skill behind him, and like he's a pretty good like 200-foot player. But I mean, as much as you're good at that, like you kind of got to produce, man. He hasn't been producing this year at all.
Yeah, the points are not there. He's such a good player, like eye test wise. Like he just like he as soon as he gets the puck and he gets a little room, he can like dance around people. I really think his big problem is I don't think he's afraid to, but it looks like he never goes to the center of the ice. He like dances around the boards and spins and keeps the puck away from people, but he never tries to go to the center of the ice. Like he never goes to where he's gonna score. He's just like such a puck possession guy. And I mean, playing with Nick Bonino probably isn't helping. But yeah, I would really like to see him get consistent minutes with Zibanejad and Kreider on the first line. Because
I mean, it's pretty good though when you're like doing this well, and like you really wanted both of these kids to take the next step, and it looks like one of them has, and the other one hasn't even done that, right? And you're in this position, so
yeah, I mean, I'm so Lafreniere, I really hope it's for real, but he looks so good. But there's still just this cynical part of me that's like, yeah, but the next 10 games he's going to do nothing. Like it's like it feels too good to be true to me.
Dude, I just picked him up in fantasy, man, in her work league. Like that guy better not shit the bed.
I dropped him and I was like, I hope this bites me in the ass. Like I hope so badly I look like the biggest idiot for dropping him, and he immediately got back to back 2-point nights.
Dude, I totally
3-point night and a 2-point night. Yeah.
I totally hope you look like an idiot too, because that means I'll be looking like a fucking a genius. Oh,
you picked him up like right away too. I think I dropped him for Dustin Wolf, and then Wolf played like shit, got sent down. Well, because Markstrom came back, and then you picked him up like instantly.
Well, the best too is for those of you listening, we have another guy that works with us, Jake. I was ahead in the waiver wire than him, and I wasn't planning on using it that week. And Jake comes in, he's talking about picking up Lafreniere. Now he like made the claim on him, and then I just swooped in and picked him up. So he's probably punching photos of me at home right now.
I think it was after the first game that I think he put up a goal and 2 assists or 3 assists or something. And I immediately went on the fantasy league and I was like, I'm grabbing him back. And he was like already gone.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm there, buddy. Where do you want to see this team though improve the most going forward in this season? Like, where do you think their biggest weakness is, and what do you just want to see that improvement right now?
Honestly, so far it's been the depth. I mean, Will Cooley's looked really good, but like, I don't know. I think it's definitely the depth. We're getting like no depth scoring whatsoever. Like outside of Will Cooley, we have 2 goals on our bottom 6. Will Cooley has 3, and the rest of them have 2 goals. Like Goudreau has no goals, Pitlick has no goals, Bonino has no goals, Kako has 1, and VC has 1. Will Cooley has 3, and he also has 2 taken away, which were maybe a little biased, but terrible calls. So like depth scoring is non-existent right now. So I really think they need something. I don't know. Yeah, I wish we had kept Tarasenko. That would have been incredible. I don't know how they would have made it work, but and I think another thing that might help that depth scoring is if Hedl can come back and actually be healthy, but he seems to be having a lot of concussion issues, so I don't know how that's going to go, but I would love to see him just be healthy and actually scoring again. But yeah, I think depth scoring is a huge part of it.
So yeah, you're saying like depth scoring is an issue with them. I kind of agree with that. Like going forward, especially in the playoffs, like you need your depth, but this team's obviously using limited cap space right now. Like you really, like we were talking about earlier today, guys are in, guys are out, going down, getting sent up the next day because of the cap.
Yeah.
Like, how do you see them like making a move to like improve? Like, do you think like Barclay Goudreau could be on the way out, him making over $3 million? Like, kind of try to clear that up, bring someone else in, or what do you see them really doing, like going forward?
I think the absolute best move would be Goudreau going somewhere, but I don't know how. Yeah, I think the absolute best move would be moving him out and getting that cap, or moving him in a trade with picks to pick somebody up, and you make cap.
That was
space.
A bad contract since the day it was signed.
Yeah, but I think Chris Drury loves him. I think he's like the exact player that, and honestly, like he doesn't like, yes, he's making too much money, but like he is a workhorse. Like that guy works when
Yeah.
he's on the ice. And like it's not, you don't want to be paying 3.6 million for your fourth line center. But
No. Yeah. He was not really producing offensively whatsoever. But yeah, I agree. He's an effective NHL player. He just makes too much money, and that's tough when you're so close to the cap, right? But like,
yeah,
speaking of cap, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the other thing that we never see and we never really get a true grasp on is how important is that guy in the locker room. Like he has an A, like he's an assistant captain on the team, so like he's got to be well respected with the team, right? And he might be one of those guys where we trade him and then the team falls apart because he's not holding it together anymore, right? But we don't see that as fans sitting on the outside. So that's what kind of what I've always thought with him. But
Interesting. I just got one more question for you, G.
Mhm.
Like, obviously, you're talking about cap space here. They had limited cap space. It was hard in the offseason. You couldn't really do too much. Like, Blake Wheeler's coming in making $800,000. But one guy that, like, a lot of people aren't talking about, probably the best sign in the offseason, like Eric Gustafson, man.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's been, like, awesome. Like, he's playing, on the bottom pair right now, putting up, like, 10 points in 14 games. I know when he was on Montreal a couple years ago, he was on the team when they made the Stanley Cup Finals. I wasn't a huge fan of him personally. He seems like he's taken his game to another level over these past couple years. He signed 3 straight years, 1-year deals where he's making under $1 million. Like, he's at that point in his career where he's 31, 32. He's not looking at a big payday. But like, how do you feel about this guy, man? I think he's definitely the best off-season signings, at least so far.
Yeah, I mean, I do not understand how this guy isn't making like 3 or 4 mil. Like Adam Fox went down, he went on LTIR. Eric Gustafson that game stepped into our power play, stepped into Fox's spot, and our power play hasn't dropped at all. Like he's playing like Adam Fox. It's insane. I don't know how this guy's making 800K, but he is by far the best signing we had.
And the Leafs
sure.
are scratching this guy in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, I don't get it. He has been fantastic. Like he has 10 points in 14 games, and he's playing on our first power play, which is, I think we're second in the league for power play percent. And he stepped right into Fox's spot, and our power play looks fine.
And he's normally playing on the third pair, is he not? Because you have Miller and Lindgren.
Yeah, so he was playing. So it's usually Fox and Lindgren, Miller and Trouba, and then it would have been Gustafson and Schneider. Was our third pairing to start the year.
Yeah, that's really good value.
That's a nice decor, man.
That's some really good value at $825K.
I don't know how he's played. What has he played for, like 6 teams in 5 years or something?
Yeah, like he came in, right, and he was really good with Chicago that first year, and then his play took a bit of a dip for a bit, and then now it seems like it's back up there.
Yeah, because he put up like 60 points in 79 games for Chicago, which is insane. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't know how he was scratched by Toronto, but God, he looks good. Like when Fox comes back, it's gonna suck if he starts losing minutes, and I mean he's going to, but he's
been a good problem to have though with an injury, right? Like especially on the left side, you never know who goes down. Good guy to have for sure.
I think he is like the thing that the Rangers have been looking for years now, like having like an older, solid, can do anything defenseman. There's been such a hole in our defense core. Like we bounced around from like all the way back to like Brendan Smith, Nico Mikkola. Like we had all these guys who we were trying to fill this hole with, and none of them ever stuck. But this guy just feels like the real deal. I don't know how. Like if we can get him to sign another deal after this, if he keeps producing like this, he's such great value. I mean, he might be the best value on the entire roster.
Mark, you got anything? You got anything else, Mark?
Man, one last thing. We haven't talked about him at all. He's been injured a little bit, but like, how do you think Igor's been doing this year? Like, I really love this guy. He's an incredible goaltender. I think if you guys want to have any success throughout the entire season and the playoffs, this guy's got to be at the top of his game. He was last year in the playoffs. How you feeling about him? You think he looks any different from last year? Or what are your overall thoughts?
I think he started kicking into his stride. The first couple games, there was a game. It was against Nashville. The whole team just looked terrible, and I was a doomsday sayer. I was like, "Oh, we're done. No one's gonna. We're so screwed. The new system doesn't work." And then he started kicking into his stride, and then that game against Carolina we lost Fox and Shesterkin, and I think he was just getting into it. I think he was starting to pick it up, and I think I have a feeling he's been perfectly healthy for the past few days, but they've just said we're winning, we're going to put it off, and after this bye week we'll come back and play him.
Quick's been incredible.
That's the other thing, right? Is I don't think there's any reason to rush it back. And we've won games with Louis Domingue and Jonathan Quick, two goalies who people counted out completely of like, they're done, and we're still winning these games. So I feel like if we get Igor back and we have Igor at Igor level, I mean, we might never get scored on again. Especially if we get Fox back.
There we go with that, buddy. Well, it's always a pleasure having you on, buddy. Thanks for coming on. We're definitely gonna have to have you on again later this season. Maybe maybe when they start tanking, we'll have you on and we can get that sad fan side of you. So
yeah, we blow in the playoffs again.
Yeah, when you guys blow in the playoffs, we'll have you on just to rant for an hour and a half.
Okay, I'll bring more hot takes that time. Everybody's gonna listen to this hoping for hot takes.
Well, thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Well, Mark, I think we should make our way out to a division rival of the New York Rangers, the Washington Capitals. We were sort of ripping this team, I think, episode 2 or 3 about their slow start, talking about Ovi. But after that slow start, they're 7-2-1 in their last 10 games. They're second in the Metro right now. They're looking a lot better than they were at the beginning of the season. I think we got to talk about Ovi, though. Through 14 games, he has 4 goals. He's on pace for 23 goals. We talked about it earlier on in the podcast episodes. Should we really be starting to get worried now about the chase for Gretzky and that all-time goals record?
Man, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be close, though.
Like, I think he's going to pick it up at least a bit.
It's crazy, though, that 2 of these goals are empty netters, too, man. Like, he has not been good at all this season, to be quite honest with you. He's leading the team in points, but do you think I think it's like close enough now where I feel like he can tail off a bit and still get it, but do you think there's a chance he's just not going to get it?
I think he'll get it.
That's what I think. Like, I think he will too, but it's just going to be more of a question mark now, I think. Like, he's taken a step back, like...
Oh, for sure. Yeah, he's on pace for 23 goals. Like, when have we ever said in this guy's career that he's on pace for anything less than like 35 goals? Like, we never have.
Do you think he's missing like prime Backstrom right now?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing right now is that their power play unit is the worst in the NHL. Dude, their power play's at 7.3%. When you think about
Alex, insane.
When you put together an Alex Ovechkin highlight reel for him breaking Gretzky's record, the most amount of clips we're gonna see is that sitting at the dot on the power play, one timer, knuckle puck, just beating the goalie. Where it's like when your power play is running at 7.3%, like we're not getting that this year so far, man. Like we're not getting those OV one timers from the dot, which like their power play, it's not gonna be this bad all year, man. Like 7.3% is awful.
That's what I mean. I think he's gonna get going a little bit. And obviously, like he's nowhere near close to leading the league in goals or anything. I think maybe those days are behind him now. But I think he's in range where if he at least finishes this contract and he's playing pretty good still, I think there's a good possibility that he's gonna end up getting that record. So like just on to Washington more like as a team though, like. It's kind of crazy that they've turned this around. Like they had a pretty poor start the first couple games of the season, right?
To the point we were talking about if Ovi gets traded, dude. I think you mentioned that one of the episodes.
Dude, I was thinking, man, is this team going to be a top 5 pick this year? Like that's literally what was going through my head. They've turned it around. Do you notice anything with them that's just kind of like helped them turn it around? Like anything in specific, or have you really watched them whatsoever?
Dude, honestly, like I haven't been watching this team really at all lately, but I'm looking at their schedule right now, and like it's not like they were facing a bunch of bad teams in a row where it's like, okay, their last 10 games They've played some bad teams.
See, that's one thing I noticed though too. Yeah.
They beat they beat Vegas, they beat the Islanders, they beat the Devils, they lost to the Florida Panthers in overtime. They beat the Blue Jackets, and then they've also beaten the Wild and the Devils again over their last 10 games. So it's like you're like, they're not playing bad teams. Like all those teams that I just mentioned outside of sort of the Blue Jackets are all playoff teams, right? Like,
yeah, and it's like no one on their team is really producing a lot offensively. Like they've been in some lower scoring games. Like I know Charlie Lindgren's only started 4 games in net, but he's having a really hot start to the season. So they've been getting some pretty decent goaltending as well. Ovi's leading their team with 11 points. I mean, they've had some other guys like just chip in down the lineup as well. So, I mean, it's been a team effort from them. Them losing Nick Backstrom's obviously like pretty big deal, even though he wasn't playing at a great level anymore. Kind of curious to see how this team does in the next, like I'd love to talk about them in 2 or 3 weeks from now and see where they're at, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. Completely
and not
agree.
just see, because this could be just a little stretch where they're playing well. I don't know. I don't see it from them. They have some better players down their lineup, I think, than maybe we as fans give them credit for. Like I really like Connor McMichael. I think he's like a pretty decent little player for them. But I don't know. I still don't see this team like making the playoffs, to be quite honest.
Dude, they have a power play percentage of 7.3%, and I'm looking at their goals against and for right now. They're at -2.
That's what I mean. They're not getting
Like,
a lot of like scoring.
Nothing about this team screams second in the Metro. And I sort of agree with you. I think maybe they've had a hot last 10 games here. Maybe all that Ovi, will he break the record talk's been getting to them, and they've been saying internally we got to step it up here. But yeah, I think in a couple of weeks when we're talking about this team next, we're not going to be talking about them sitting second in the Metro. I think we should move on to the Edmonton Oilers, though. We got to talk about them. We were sort of ripping them last podcast. Had a good time with Farzy.
We got to talk about them every week, dude.
We looked like fucking geniuses because we were talking about him, and then I think it was the next day I woke up to the Woodcroft firing. So they fired Jay Woodcroft, and they've hired Chris Knobloch as his replacement. You want to hear a good little stat here for the Edmonton Oilers, Mark?
I would love to hear one.
Last 4 Edmonton Oilers coaches have all had Dick-themed names. Yeah, you heard that right. We start off with Ken Hitchcock. He has cock in his name. You go to Dave Tippett. That's a good one. Of course, Jay Woodcroft. He was just fired. And now Chris Knobloch. Yeah, 4 Dick-themed names for the last 4 Edmonton Oilers coaches. I think it's starting to become a requirement when you're handing in your resume there. You hand in your resume, and that's the first thing they run it through AI, and it's like, this guy has some sort of dick in his name. He's hired.
I thought you were going to give me some stat about coaching in junior or something, but you went totally off the rails on that one.
I went with the most important stat of the hiring process for Edmonton.
Good to know, but I mean, like, what do you think about this whole situation, man? Like Woodcroft going, this new guy coming in.
So what I think of this whole situation is that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl are going to stay Edmonton Oilers. We sort of tease here and there that, are they going to leave? No, they're not. They're going to stay. You know why? Because they're running the organization, man. Like Jeff Jackson, who's the Oilers CEO of hockey operations, he's McDavid's former agent. Like those two guys have been together since he was like 15 years old. Like, you know how you talk about in the NBA, we talk about Le GM, like LeBron James, Le GM. That's Connor McDavid in the NHL. He's
so do you
GM
actually
McDavid.
do you believe that McDavid had something to do with this firing?
I don't think he went to them and said, can we fire him? But I think they said, look, Connor, we think we're going to fire Jay Woodcroft. Are you okay with that? And he would have said yes. Because if you're firing your head coach, you're running it by Connor McDavid before you do that.
You think so?
Without a doubt, man.
So he said he didn't know, though.
Yeah, dude, I say I'm fucking 6'5", man. I'm not
Never heard you say that, but interesting to know. Okay, so
I don't say that, but
what do you think of the whole thing about how Jeff Jackson, or whatever the heck the guy's name is, the CEO, how he said that they didn't talk? So he said, I forget which one it was, but one of them said that they talked to leadership about it, that it was possibly going to happen, and then I'm pretty sure the GM Holland said they didn't talk to leadership, or it was the other way around. They both had different answers, though. Like, one of them said they talked to McDavid and Draisaitl and Nurse, and then the other one was like, we didn't.
Well, right now, Ken Holland's not in charge of the Edmonton Oilers. Ken Holland has lost the Edmonton Oilers. The only reason he hasn't been fired yet, like, I thought he should have been fired instead of Jay Woodcroft, but the reason he hasn't been fired yet is because his contract's done at the end of this year. And like Ken Holland, he's a hockey.
Yeah, I think it's just like his legacy and stuff. I think that's why they're not doing it.
Like, I don't think he's running the Edmonton Oilers anymore. I think Jeff Jackson's fully taken over. This was Jeff Jackson's call, man. They went out and hired Connor McDavid's coach from juniors. Like, this had Connor McDavid, Jeff Jackson written all over it, right? Like,
I guess, yeah, but man, to be fair though, I think he's actually very deserving of the job. To be quite honest with you, he's kind of grinded his way.
Jeff Jackson.
No, Chris Knobloch or whatever his name is.
Oh, yeah.
Man, honestly, and we're always talking about how we don't want the same GMs and coaches in the league. This is a new guy. Like, we're talking about getting new blood into this league. Give this guy a shot. Jay Woodcroft was a guy who wasn't in the league before. Gave him a shot. It worked out pretty well for the most part until now, to be quite honest with you. So nothing against. I didn't really personally think Woodcroft should have been fired. But nothing against this guy coming in, right? He's just hired for the job. Hopefully he can help them turn it around, because I would hate to see McDavid and Draisaitl continue to just keep losing and it be not good for Edmonton in the long run. This guy's going to get a chance with this team. I don't know. I just cannot believe he got fired, Woodcroft. I am just like, if the GM was fired too, I would be like, okay. But like, the fact that he's still there is mind-boggling. I get his legacy, whatever, but bro, you're the GM of the Edmonton Oilers with Connor McDavid. Like, there should be no, oh, we'll keep you at the end of the season, but the CEO is going to make the decisions and just like pretend like you're making the decisions. Like, I think screw that, man. Like, I don't know. Like, would you be happy about that if you're McDavid either? I wouldn't, to be honest.
But for McDavid, it helps that it's Jeff Jackson. Like, it's his former agent, right? Like, these guys are like, the Oilers brought Jeff Jackson in as a CEO of hockey operations, so Connor McDavid would stick around here for his entire career, right? Like,
well, yeah, I think that's definitely a reason, but I don't think that necessarily means like McDavid's running the organization.
I don't think he's either, but like, I definitely think he has a massive say in what goes on in Edmonton, which, like, he should. He's the best player in the NHL right now. He's the best player in the NHL.
I think he's just mad though. I think he's just not happy with anything right now.
Yeah. We got to talk about Jack Campbell though, man. I teased it to start off the podcast, man. This guy, dude, like, we talked about the Edmonton Oilers goaltending issues last year and how last episode, and how Jack Campbell was going down the AHL. Yay, good for him. He's going to get his confidence back. He's going to come up to the NHL and he's going to fix their goaltending issues. Dude, this guy looks worse in the AHL than he did in the NHL, man. Like, I literally don't know what you do with this guy, man. Like, I think they got to file like a missing persons report, dude. Like, it's atrocious, dude. This guy's an .819 save percentage in the AHL in 3 games. Yeah, it's only 3 games, but dude, it's the AHL. You're a $5 million goaltender. How are you this bad, dude? I'm like, I've been watching some of these games when I'm at work, man. Like, last night I was watching the Bakersfield Wranglers game. Like, there was one of the goals, man. He just wasn't hugging his post and it fucking squeezed in. Like, bro, I don't know what to say, man. You're a former goaltender. Like, what do you have to say? Like, I'm at a loss of words, dude.
See, with me, dude, it was just like, ever since Jack Campbell entered the league, I've just never been really that convinced with him. I've never really thought he was that much of an NHL goalie to begin with, to be quite honest. I think he had like a really good stretch in Toronto for like 20 games when he was playing like in the North Division, like with some teams that weren't really that great, including Montreal. Like, I don't know,
Post-COVID
like,
Montreal.
yeah, like, well, man, I'm gonna stand like a finals. Put some respect on that, bro. But like, I don't know, man. It's just like I've never really been that convinced with him. So it's not that like, okay, I guess the struggling in the AHL is like kind of another level. But I mean, like the fact that he's like on waivers in the minors, like, bro, I knew that was a disaster the second that contract was signed. Like, I don't know. I've just never seen it in him. Like every time he's been good, he's had good defense playing in front of him. Like, there's not really that many great components to his game to begin with, right? Like what do you like look in Jack Campbell's game? Like, oh, I know he's playing terrible right now, but like even when he was playing good, like what would you look in his game and be like, okay, he's like actually like really good at that? Nothing really. Like his rebound control, maybe. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was pretty good for like some time, but it's like you look at all these different guys, like even like average NHL goaltenders, and if you watch them, you'll be like, okay, man, that guy's flexible as fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Or like he's really good, like, I don't know, on his blocker side or something. You know what I mean? But like there's never been anything with Campbell where that really kind of blows me away. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm not really that surprised. I guess this is happening, to be quite honest. I think there's a lot of AHL goaltenders that are actually better than him. So I don't see any point in this season him getting called back up because his play is miraculously improved.
See, like, I think Edmonton's so fucked right now with their goal. Like,
so I've been reading that they are seriously really trying hard to get rid of his contract.
You have to be though, man, because like you sent him down last year. He came back up. He played good enough to be in the NHL last year, right? When he came back up from the AHL. It was all right last season. You had Stuart Skinner too, who was playing pretty good. He was an all-star last year, so there wasn't any issues though. This year, Stuart Skinner not having that all-star caliber season as he was last year. So it's like, okay, you need Jack Campbell to at least be an average NHL goalie. No, he's not that. Okay, we'll send him down to the AHL, get his confidence back up. He's played 3 games already. You'd think like 3. You'd think he'd play anywhere between 3 to 5 AHL games and then get called back up because you know what? Like, looks like he's playing a bit better. He's gonna get
getting in the rhythm,
dude. Like it literally like right now it looks like, man, like you could probably like Jack Campbell might have to play 10 AHL games at this rate.
I just think it's I don't think at all. Like I just don't think he's getting called up again at all. Like I just permanently think he's there the rest of the season. That's just
you're just gonna
I don't see his game improving.
Just gonna have $5 million sitting in the AHL then.
That's what LA did with Cal Peterson last year.
Yeah, but that was like
what Philly's been doing with him this year.
But that's like 1 year. It's a bad, like, you don't have Connor McDavid on your team, man. Like, I don't think
Well, it's more or less if you can't move the contract, though. Right?
Dude, I don't know where they're going to move him right now. Like, I don't, like...
See, to be honest with you, dude, like, if the price was right, like, and we were getting a lot of assets for taking his deal on, like, I would be down for Montreal to take him and just bury him in the minors and, like, buy him out at the end of the year, personally. Like, if it was to the point where, like, they're giving them, like, a first-round pick and, like, a prospect to take his contract on, like, I would take it and, like, send Jake Allen the other way.
It's 3 more years after this, though, man.
Buy him out. If you're telling me, like, it wouldn't be worth it if they got... Dude, they got a first-round pick to take Sean Monahan's contract on. Obviously, he's playing really well right now, so that's a different story. But I don't know, man. Like, the Flames aren't even in a good situation right now, dude. We have your 2025 first-round pick. Dude.
Don't get me going on that. Don't get me going on that.
You know what I mean, though? Like, that's why it's like I'm open to it if the price was right. Like, and you're going to have to give up a lot to get rid of him anyway. And Montreal's not in a spot where it's like it's going to like destroy their cap. They're not winning now.
Yeah, I guess I'd consider it if I was Montreal, but like, dude, like, I don't know, man. Edmonton's going to have to give up a lot here. to get rid of him.
Well, what they don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. So like it's like I don't know, unless they want to keep him the rest of the year and then just buy him out. I really don't know what their options are. I think minimum just to take his contract with no return, I think it's a first-round pick on a prospect easily. It's a lot of money for a couple more years.
One, it's the term. Well, it's the with him, it's the money, it's the term, and then the other thing is like you mentioned the Sean Monahan. Like when you're in Sean Monahan as a rebuilding team, it's like okay, like he's still a player we can just put in our lineup every night. And like
Dude, the thing is, think about this, dude. So Monahan is re-signed with Montreal, making 1.9. Calgary gave Montreal that first just to take him on for 1 year at 6.3.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm saying with Campbell at 5. Like I'm asking for a first and a prospect easily. And then if they want like Jake Allen, like that's another like pick and whatever on its own.
They're gonna be trading fucking draft.
I think they're going to be giving up a lot of future assets to get out of the situation, but I don't think they really have a choice. I think you just have to do it at this point and say, screw it. Like, who cares about our drafting the next couple of years? Like, we're going to have to try to get good players in the late rounds if we can, but what's more important right now is us having like 2 of the best players in the world, like, and surrounding them with better players. You know what I mean? Like, that's the priority right now over drafting.
I completely agree with you. They got to do what they can to win with this. With these 2 players. I think what we just talked about, though, really shows, though, why the fuck Ken Holland should be fired. Because, like, what he's done there it's been terrible. We should move on, though, to the Buffalo Sabres. This was a team I was sucking off all preseason, man. They're
man.
7th in the Atlantic right now, 7-8-1 record. They have 15 points. They're 11 points behind the Boston Bruins, who are first in the Atlantic. Rough news for them though. Tage Thompson, he's gonna be out at least 1 month with a wrist injury. Should we be hopping off the Buffalo Sabres bandwagon here? I think it might be time.
I mean, I still like the team. I'm just not as convinced they're making the playoffs this year now. Rough start. Now they're losing their number 1 center. Can't be good at all. Man, one guy that's been really solid this year, though, Casey Middlestat. He's been producing at a pretty good rate. Seems like he's finally coming like out of his shell, almost. I still think they have. We talked about it preseason. If something was going to go wrong for them, it was that they're not going to get great goaltending, and their defense could let them down a bit. Like, they've got some really good defensemen on their team, but like their whole defensive style of play isn't that great, right? Thompson, he hasn't been bad by any means. He hasn't been producing at the rate you'd kind of expect him to, though, right? No one on their team is a point per game. I honestly would have thought maybe a couple guys were. Like Skinner was last year. Thompson was over a point per game. I think Power and Dahlin have been pretty good, though, to be quite honest, this year. But I don't know. It's going to be really tough down the stretch without Thompson. Curious to see if they can make it work with like Cousins and like Middlestat as like 1-2C. That's still not a terrible situation, to be honest. Like if you look at that, but losing Thompson's going to be huge. But there's been situations where like stars are gone and teams kind of pick it up. They've still got a lot of like good depth. Like Jack Quinn will be back soon too. Maybe like him getting inserted into the lineup will help them out. Like I said, not too optimistic they're going to make the playoffs, but they're not in like a terrible situation or anything. They just haven't got going at all.
Well, with the Sabres, they're really a team that have to outscore all their issues. And so far this season, like they just haven't been able to do that. As you mentioned, they don't have a point per game player, right? Like they're just not getting those goals that we were expecting them to coming into the season. And now losing Tage Thompson, it's going to be a rough next month for him, man. Like their team here that could really, really fall off here and like be out of it by Christmas time, right? Like it's not looking good. I think I'm hopping off the bandwagon. If you want to stay on, feel free, buddy. But
I'm staying on for now.
I'm back to my New Jersey Devils in the Eastern Conference, so I'm sticking with them. Sticking with the Swiss boys. I think that wraps it up though for this episode. Honestly, we covered a lot, Mark. Got
It's a
another
long
guest
episode,
appearance.
man.
Yeah, long episode. Got another guest appearance. I know next week we're planning on a pretty big guest appearance. Not next week, definitely the week after. So definitely stay tuned and keep an eye out for that episode because it's gonna be a hectic one. Thanks for tuning in though, and this will be released Friday, and we're gonna start doing that. So keep an eye out for new episodes coming at you every Friday.